MSW Media.
So yeah, now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 249 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. Almost episode 250, my friend.
Almost.
We'll have to have a celebration.
We should.
Yeah, we should. It's Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. I'm Allison Gill.
Hey, G, what's up? It's Harry Dunn here. All right, today we're going to cover the arraignment of New York Attorney General Letitia James and the pardoned January 6th rioter charged with threatening to kill Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, a little recidivism going on with these pardoned insurrectionists. Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, who would have thunk it?
Right. Also, Eric Adams has endorsed Andrew Cuomo, surprising exactly no one. Plus, ousted Department of Justice lawyers have opened their own little law firm to target corruption, and I love this for them. And the Pentagon is announcing their new crackerjack press corps after the mass walkout last week. We're going to talk about that.
What a joke.
Also, patrons. We have some new patrons to thank. I wanted to make sure that we took a minute to thank our new patrons and do some Hall of Fame shout outs. So our Hall of Fame patrons this week: Sharon Tukolsky, Clover's Tree 73, Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, Greg Kreimer, Ren Special K. Kaidu, law offices of Redacted, Epstein, and Redacted, hugely criminal attorneys, Patty B., Accidental Bird Sanctuary founder, love that for you, Deborah Kirby, and Tiffany Trump was adopted. So that is our Hall of Fame shout out. We're going to have one for each block of the show today. And for all of our patrons, if you are a patron, it's a Halloween night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We're going to have our monthly Zoom Q&A call. So that's coming up this Friday. So we're going to look forward to seeing everybody who's a patron there. If you want to become a patron, patreon.com/aisle45pod. That's all you got to do.
Be there or be square.
Totally. Don't be such an L7. All right, everybody. With that out of the way, I wanted to just, first of all, we're in the middle of a government shutdown, Harry, right?
Yeah.
And it's now been 36 days since Adelita Grijalva was elected for Arizona's 7th. The Senate is working, so it's not the shutdown. It's that they don't want to get a vote on the discharge petition for the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And I think some friends of yours are going to be testifying this week.
Well, yeah, Tuesday. So we're recording on Monday. So when people are hearing this, they would have, Danny Hodges is testifying tomorrow, Tuesday tomorrow, because we record this on Monday. Before, I think it's, they asked me to do it. I didn't have the energy to put together a testimony in the amount of time. Although I probably could have just went up there and just talked about political violence and how bad it is, and having lived it and experienced it. But this is the Republican side bringing it. They are the ones that are hosting the hearing, I guess. And the minorities, the Democrats, are able to bring forth witnesses. And Daniel Hodges will be testifying. Daniel Hodges, as you all know, or will remember, is the brave hero that was smashed in the door on January 6th. Had his face mask ripped off by rioters, and has been outspoken and stomping for accountability and justice just as much as I have. And I think the world of him. And I will be there tomorrow to support him, along with members of the Sicknick family. As you all will remember, Brian Sicknick was killed the day after January 6th, officially died on January 7th. So, yeah, his members of his family will be there tomorrow, Tuesday. I think they will be streaming it somewhere on maybe C-SPAN or something.
And is this sort of counter testimony to the Republicans who want to show that all of the violence, political violence, is coming from the left or whatever?
That's correct. Peter Welch, senator from Vermont, is going to be, he's the minority leader, or what do they call it? The ranking member on that committee. And he wants to highlight the violence about January 6th, which is good. And we should never get away from that. And I'm glad that he giving the opportunity for officers to continue to have that at front and center, even in the midst of a government shutdown.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
it still needs to go on. So.
Well, I'm really, like I said, I'm very glad that they're having an opportunity to show the other side of this and to have Daniel testify. So we'll talk about that after it happens on the next episode. But, because of the weird podcast time travel thing, it's tomorrow as we're recording this, but yesterday as you're listening. So we'll cover that in more detail after it happens, which will be on the next week's episode or maybe on this weekend's bonus episode for patrons. All right, let's talk about the first thing I want to talk about today is the arraignment of Letitia James on 2 counts of mortgage fraud, which reporting from the New York Times has already shown to be totally bogus because she stayed there for extended periods of time and didn't collect rent the whole time. And the best coverage of Letitia James's arraignment that I found comes from Molly Roberts at Lawfare. And she writes, Judge Jamar K. Walker takes his seat. The court comes to order and the parties are introduced. These include Keller, who will represent the United States in this matter. Halligan, sitting silently on the far side of the prosecution table, is described as also present.
Also
They're probably
present.
Just like sit there and don't talk.
Just don't say a word. Judge Walker announces the arraignment of James and proceeds through the customary procedure for an initial appearance. He warns the defendant of her right to counsel and to remain silent. He recites the charges in the indictment, bank fraud, and false statements to a financial institution, as well as the maximum penalties of 30 years in prison and a fine of $1 million.
Yeah, I wonder if he rolled his eyes when he was reading that. Anyway, does James waive a formal reading of the indictment, the judge asks. She does, says Lowell. That's Abby Lowell. Does she wish to plead not guilty and have a trial by jury? She would like to enter her plea herself, please. And she does. Not guilty, judge, to both counts. Judge Walker next wants to know whether the defendant wishes to avail herself of a trial within 70 days she's entitled to under the Speedy Trial Act. Quote, the speediest trial we can possibly get, says Abby Lowell, but then added a few caveats. Until the previous day, he didn't know who the opposing counsel in the case would be. He still hasn't been provided with discovery. And the motions he intends to introduce won't be run-of-the-mill, and they might take some time to work through. So he'd like to postpone the trial, quote, a bit. And I do mean a bit.
A bit. So he wanted to make that very clear, a bit. The judge asked whether the defense is asking for a date outside the speedy trial date, but not far outside. Lowell replies, you said it better than I did. A brief back and forth ensues, in which the prosecution confirms it's satisfied by the arrangement if James waives her right to a speedy trial, and the judge explains that he can simply make an oral finding that a later date better serves the ends of justice without her waiving said right.
Nice.
Next, a similar exchange wherein the government and the judge don't seem entirely on the same page about the typical proceedings in the district or their pace. Keller said he expects the trial to take approximately 2 weeks. The judge asked emphatically, why? Told that Keller, wait, why? 2 weeks? Told that Keller plans to call 8 to 10 witnesses, but the number may be cut back. The judge appears more surprised still, as do we all.
2 weeks, 8 to 10 witnesses. The judge goes, okay, here? Well, I'm not going to hold it against you, presumably because Keller is effectively new here. But this sounds to Judge Walker more like a 3 to 5 day trial. Quote, our judges, says Keller, like to be provided with a maximum time frame. Lowell agrees with Judge Walker's assessment. The trial is tentatively set for 5 days, beginning on January 26th, 2026. With that out of the way, it's time to move on to motions. On Thursday, James submitted a notice of intent to file a motion to disqualify Lindsay Halligan because of her alleged unlawful appointment as interim U.S. attorney. James filed the motion shortly after the arraignment ended, by the way. Judge Walker notes that a similar complaint already filed by Jim Comey's counsel has been assigned to U.S. District Judge for the District of South Carolina, Cameron McGowan Curry. He wonders whether the parties would agree to consolidate the motions, given that they may end up identical or nearly identical.
We're not only in favor, says Lowell, we hope That's exactly what will happen. And this hope is the reason he gave the courts a heads up, so that there might be time to put the two together before the hearing scheduled for next month. This part is easy. Keller says the move would make sense to the government. Judge Walker says he'll transfer this matter to Judge Curie.
Okay, Judge Curry, by the way, Clinton appointee, and the reason that they're going to District of South Carolina is because all the Eastern District of Virginia judges had to recuse because they can't decide whether Lindsay Halligan is legitimate or not. And then if it gets overturned, they have to do cases with her. So that would be a huge conflict of interest.
But is that encouraging, though, that every single judge in the district recused?
Well, no, they have to.
Oh, they had to. Okay, so this wasn't just like a matter of conscious thing. This was like,
no.
All right, okay.
No, because
wait a minute, that's kind of encouraging.
If you think about it, if a district judge in the Eastern District of Virginia found that Lindsay Halligan was appointed improperly, but the Supreme Court overturned their order, and then that judge had to hear cases with Lindsay Halligan, that would be a massive conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So no judge in the district can decide this. So they sent it to South Carolina to this Clinton appointee named Curry. And it looks like the government and Abby Lowell and this judge all agree. Yeah, we should see if we can consolidate those two filings. The next motion invites a bit more controversy, or at least confusion. James also filed a motion prior to the arraignment asking the court to order the government to follow the rules preventing disclosure of investigative and case materials, as well as to refrain from extrajudicial statements concerning the case to the press and the public. This is the best part. This motion was prompted in part by an October 20th article published in Lawfare by my colleague, senior editor Anna Bauer, detailing text messages sent to her by Lindsay Halligan, in which Halligan criticizes Bauer's tweets about New York Times coverage of a grand jury testimony in the case.
Yeah, that was an interesting or fun read, so to speak. This violated the filing, says Rule 6 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. It argues that the exchange with Bauer and the other instances of apparent disclosure it describes, including pre-indictment reports that prosecutors intended to bring charges, also violates various rules, regulations, and ethical obligations. The motion doesn't ask for a finding to that effect, only for an order to prevent such conduct in the future. The judge, mentioning only a journalist and an article published, notes these oddities of the filing. Anyone hoping for a television-ready showdown in which the defense demands the prosecution be held in contempt is quickly disappointed. Judge Walker has interpreted the filings correctly, confirms Lowell.
Okay. So the judge determines that leaves the prosecution three options. Oppose the motion in its entirety, don't oppose it at all, or oppose the proposed relief. The Eastern District prosecutors would have to preserve all documents relevant to the trial, a litigation hold, as well as create a log of all contact between its attorneys or agents and the media. The litigation hold doesn't bother the government lawyer, Keller, but he expresses reservations about the log, mentioning that the defendant is also active on the internet. Specifically, he takes issue with her tweeting that she's innocent. So you're allowed to do that. The prosecutors aren't allowed to tweet that you're guilty, but you're allowed to say that you're innocent.
Lord have mercy.
And it goes on here. The judge understandably appears perplexed. He remarks that it's unclear what Keller is asking for. And it is. A public tweet from James in which she says, "I'm not fearful, I'm fearless," has little to do with contact between her attorneys and the media. The misunderstanding only becomes greater when Keller from the government elaborates that any log requirement for the government should also be a requirement for the defendant and should cover statements of innocence before the press.
What? Does he mean that James should have to keep a record of any proclamations of her intention to fight the charges against her? Or does he mean she shouldn't be allowed to make them at all? That's the big question here. Keller seems to be suggesting that the restrictions on the defendant's public speech should mirror those placed on the prosecution, but this is not how these things work. Prosecutors have unique obligations not placed on defendants who have First Amendment rights to protest their innocence. Yeah, we saw that Donald Trump did it every time.
I seem to remember Donald Trump taking advantage of that First Amendment right to protest their innocence, or protest, excuse me. Judge Walker delicately instructs the government guy, Keller, a civil litigation lawyer by training, as it turns out, to take some time to think about that and get back to him. Lowell, for his part, declares that the rules to which the government lawyers are held are not the same ones that apply to a defendant. Quote, "The court certainly understands the requirements," responds the judge. "It's a little less certain that the prosecutor does."
Slap down.
Onward then to discovery.
Here, again, there's some polite discord. Lowell and Keller, it turns out, have already conferred about when the documents will be made available to the defense, and Keller says they've agreed on a date of November the 14th. Lowell replies that this is mostly correct and that he would like to receive the documents as soon as possible. But given he is hearing there are mounds and mounds and mounds, he'll take what he can get when he can get it.
Oh my God. You don't want to start producing discovery till November 14th. Did you not have your evidence?
For a trial, January, what did we say, 26? Is that what it was?
It's like 3 weeks. Do you not have the evidence? Do you not have it? Is that why why you need more time to produce it?
It doesn't exist, AG. That's what I think.
We're going to have 8 to 10 witnesses in a 2-week trial, but we don't have any discovery we can give you yet. And here again, Judge Walker is puzzled. Customarily, the government would be ready to provide at minimum its first production of evidence at or around the time of the arraignment. So that initial motions may be filed within 2 weeks, right? You need to file your motions. "Let me ask this, Mr. Lowell," says the judge. This is talking to Letitia James's lawyer. "Let me ask this, Mr. Lowell. Do you intend to file a motion to dismiss based on selective or vindictive prosecution?" "It's about the worst kept secret of the case," Lowell responds, "that the defense believes James has a deeply meritorious complaint about vindictive prosecution, motivated presumably by the president's oft-stated animus against James after her office successfully sued him for misrepresenting the value of his real estate holdings. He also plans to consider a selective prosecution motion depending on what discovery reveals."
Furthermore, James may issue a separate motion to dismiss on the grounds that the indictment doesn't properly allege that she committed the crimes with which she has been charged. Judge Walker says he would usually issue a discovery order at arraignment, but because the parties haven't reached an agreement, he will let them confer and submit briefs if they desire, after which he will issue an order. As I'm sure you will learn, this district has a standard discovery order.
I don't think Keller knows that.
I don't think so.
And you're new. I'll give you some, the judge is like, "Okay, that's not how things work here, sir." The rest of the arraignment requires fewer educational efforts on the judge's part, though not none. He reminds the government of its due process obligations, and the prosecutor agrees. He assumes the government doesn't seek detention of the defendant. Keller once again agrees. He seeks to confirm both sides have received pretrial services reports. The prosecution exclaims, "We have not, Your Honor." Following some conferring with his colleagues, Keller corrects himself with an, "Oh, yes, we have those." Judge Walker then gives him a moment to catch up. Oh, my goodness. The final word from the bench. Judge Walker expects the parties will familiarize themselves with how we do things here to avoid any missteps going forward. And he thanks the U.S. Marshals, law enforcement, and the courthouse staff, and the court stands adjourned.
James delivers a short statement to the media, but it's hard to hear her over a man who has dubbed himself the Secretary of Retribution, who is excoriating Lowell for defending, quote, "the Biden crime syndicate," or over the more supportive chants of the rest of the crowd. There's one person this morning who doesn't address the court, and it also seems to avoid talking to the press. That is Lindsay Halligan.
Yeah, it's best you just keep your mouth shut there, lady.
But
even Keller was like, "We have not." "Oh, wait, yes, we have." "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that." "Oh, the rules? Okay, I forgot." I'm assuming, Harry, that the Secretary of Retribution who was outside yelling is Ivan Reichlin.
He's referred him. That's his title on Twitter or X or whatever.
Yeah, I imagine that's him.
Probably.
All right, so that was the arraignment, and thanks to Molly over at Lawfare for putting that together. It was so well written, and it got into the ins and outs. Trial again, January 26th. There's a hearing on December 5th on one of her motions. They're going to try to consolidate the motion for Lindsay Halligan's unlawful appointment with Jim Comey's, and those are kind of the main takeaways of this arraignment, that and that she pled not guilty. and that we should see motions for vindictive and selective prosecution and perhaps failure to cite a crime, which I was thinking Jim Comey would also file, but has not. All right, everybody, that is the arraignment of Letitia James. And we're going to talk about the recidivism of pardoned January 6th insurrectionists as soon as we come back from this break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, y'all, welcome back. Okay, no one supports criminals quite as much as Donald Trump, especially when he freed and pardoned 1,500 insurrectionists that violently attacked the Capitol on January 6th. This story comes from CBS. A pardoned Capitol rioter was arrested for allegedly threatening to kill House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
Of course. Court documents obtained by CBS News say Christopher Moynihan was arrested last Sunday, a week ago, after saying in text messages that he planned to, quote, eliminate Jeffries when the top House Democrat spoke at the Economic Club of New York in New York City on Monday, October 20th. Moynihan was arraigned Tuesday, entered a plea of not guilty. He was released on bond, which blows my mind. Prosecutors told CBS News pending future court proceedings. Now, I don't get why he was released on bond, but maybe they'll get into that later in the article.
That blows my mind. That I was definitely upset by this. Like I said, I don't know the ins and outs of, but releasing a man threatening to, like I said, we'll get into that. According to a court filing by prosecutors in the New York State criminal case, Moynihan wrote, Hakeem Jeffries makes a speech in a few days in NYC. I cannot allow this terrorist to live. Moynihan also allegedly stated, even if I am hated, he must be eliminated. I will kill him for the future, the filing said. Moynihan faces a felony charge of making a terroristic threat, according to court filings shared by prosecutors.
Yeah, and in a statement on Tuesday, Hakeem Jeffries noted that Moynihan had been pardoned by Mr. Trump on his first day in office and, quote, many of the criminals released have committed additional crimes throughout the country. But Jeffries added, quote, threats of violence will not stop us from showing up, standing up, and speaking up for the American people. Moynihan's father declined to comment on the case when reached by phone by CBS News Monday. He said Moynihan has not yet been appointed a defense attorney.
Dutchess County, New York District Attorney Anthony Parisi said in a statement to CBS News that although my office was not contacted during the investigative state of this matter, we are now reviewing the case for legal and factual sufficiency. Moynihan was found guilty in August of 2022 for obstructing an official proceeding and pled guilty to 5 misdemeanor charges. He was sentenced in February 2023 to 21 months in prison.
Yep, prosecutors described Moynihan as being among the first rioters to breach police barricades and enter the Capitol grounds on January 6th. Moynihan was also among a smaller group of riot defendants who actually made it on the Senate floor during the siege. Prosecutors argued in Moynihan's sentencing memorandum, quote, while inside, Moynihan rifled through a notebook on a top senator's desk saying there's got to be something in here we can fucking use against these scumbags.
Moynihan's arrest for allegedly threatening Jeffries was made by the New York State Police, according to the statement, by the agency that was confirmed by the state official. The investigation was initiated by the FBI, according to state police. A state police statement said Moynihan was arraigned in local courts in Clinton, a town in New York's Hudson Valley region. He was remanded to the Dutchess County Justice and Transition Center in lieu of $10,000 cash bail, a $30,000 bond, or an $80,000 partially secured bond.
In March of 2025, in a floor speech, Senator Dick Durbin, a member of Senate Democratic leadership from Illinois, listed the names of accused rioters who'd been arrested again. Durbin cited the case of Matthew Huddle, who was accused of raising a firearm at police in 2025, and, quote, acknowledged he was a January 6th defendant who stormed the Capitol. And then Huddle was fatally shot by police during that traffic stop. Zachary Alam, who was convicted of 8 felonies for his role in the Capitol attack, was arrested weeks after his 2025 pardon for allegedly breaking and entering into a home near Richmond, Virginia. Other January 6 defendants have since been arrested for other alleged criminal infractions that occurred before the siege or in the years between 2021 and the pardon. So we've got a real high recidivism rate for these criminals, and for this administration to be like, we're tough on crime, but then release 1,500 violent criminals out of prison, or drop their cases and put them out on the street, or commute their sentences in some cases for seditious conspiracy. To think they're not going to break the law again, that is an administration that is not tough on crime.
Well, yeah, you said it best, recidivism. And that's exactly what they're doing. But I think it goes deeper. They feel enabled. They got the favor of Donald Trump. So,
Right.
I'm sure, like, if all these people that are found guilty or will be found guilty for their new crimes will try to make Donald Trump have his way into that courtroom, they feel empowered and emboldened. Like, they are above the law. Donald Trump is the king and they work for the king. This is all that they feel. This just goes to the bigger picture of why Donald Trump is so dangerous and why they are completely against. Well, they're not the party of law and order. They are the party as do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, agreed. All right, everybody. When we come back, we're going to talk about some recently fired Department of Justice people, some who worked on Jack Smith's team, who are now putting together a law firm to fight corruption now that they've been ousted from the Department of Justice. I think that's pretty great. I think that's a good idea. And we're going to talk about that, but we're going to take a quick break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. All right. So this is pretty cool. This is from CBS. 2 years ago, longtime federal corruption prosecutor Molly Gaston signed her name to a court filing unlike any before it. That day in October 2023, Gaston filed a 32-page motion asking a federal judge to continue limiting public statements of then former President Trump, who was accused of witness intimidation ahead of his trial in a criminal case for seeking to overturn the 2020 election. Gaston, who was lead prosecutor for the trial, knew the case was unprecedented and high stakes, as she did not know how much it would change in 2 years.
Yeah, she was a member of special counsel Jack Smith's team, which investigated a pair of criminal cases involving Donald Trump, including one for election subversion. Gaston and fellow prosecutor J.P. Cooney were part of a prosecutorial unit that submitted hundreds of pages of court filings throughout 2023 and 2024. They stood before judges in courtrooms packed with news media for historic proceedings that were immediately recognized as landmark legal moments. Smith's 2 cases against Mr. Trump were dropped when he won re-election in 2024 because under Justice Department policy, sitting presidents are not prosecuted. Boo.
Yeah, boo. Gaston and Cooney, among the most accomplished corruption prosecutors at DOJ, would lose their jobs once Trump took office in January. They were fired in a Trump administration purge of prosecutors associated with Jack Smith and the staff from the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, which has specialized in corruption cases in the 50 years since Watergate. The pair of former prosecutors have now embarked on a new chapter, opening a new private law firm, which they hope will fill a void left by the purge.
Yeah, I love this for them. Their eponymous firm, Gaston and Cooney, will leverage and promote their experience working on Smith's special counsel cases and offer to help local and state governments investigate public corruption. Gaston and Cooney said the ouster of veteran prosecutors from the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section shifts the burden to local investigators to unearth and uproot public corruption.
I love this. It's like a shadow Department of Justice helping states prosecute corruption. Justice Connection, an organization representing former agency employees, told CBS News it estimates the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section has shrunk to just 2 full-time attorneys, down from dozens.
Wow.
In recent years.
2.
Gaston and Cooney, 2. Gaston and Cooney told CBS they will also offer private legal services to clients who are the subject of investigations, including in congressional probes. Their work with Jack Smith will be listed in a press release Wednesday announcing their launch of the new firm. The 2 defend Smith and the unit's work amid a torrent of criticism from Trump and his allies who accuse Smith of being politically motivated. Cooney told CBS News, quote, "We're immensely proud of the work we did with Jack Smith and with the body of our work." He added they sought to carry out the prosecutions without fear or favor to anyone, to a political party, to a cause, to a wealthy interest, or to our own career prospects.
Yeah, Smith himself has maintained a low profile in the 9 months since Trump's second term began. In public remarks last week at an event with the former Justice Department attorney Andrew Weissman, Smith defended the investigations of Trump as righteous and fair. Cooney and Gaston were both fired by the Trump administration soon after the president was inaugurated. Even as they opened their new private law firm, the pair say they are challenging their firings as unlawful without due process or a specified cause. The pair filed complaints with the Merit Systems Protection Board, which we have talked about in depth on this show.
Quite a bit, since my good friend Kathy Harris is fighting her ouster from that board. Now, Gaston told CBS News her firing was incredibly sad and disappointing and also surprising. Quote, ethical government cannot operate under circumstances where civil servants are terminated simply for doing their jobs and carrying out their responsibilities to the American people. That's what Cooney said. Greg Rosen, former head of the Justice Department's Capitol Siege section, which prosecuted the 1,500 January 6 cases, lauded the opening of Gaston and Cooney's firm. He told CBS News, it's hard to imagine two colleagues better suited for this challenge. Their exceptional character and eagerness to engage with both complex and novel legal issues set them apart and promised to make distinctive contributions to the legal field.
Yeah, Stacey Young, executive director of Justice Connection, which assists ousted Justice Department attorneys, told CBS News, we desperately need the expertise this new firm is offering. The Justice Department has abdicated its duty to enforce public corruption laws without state and local governments filling that void. Public officials will have no incentive to treat citizens fairly within the law.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the work that they do. And if I ever do go to law school and become a lawyer, I will apply at that firm. That's what
I'm
I
about
would
to say,
want
doesn't
work.
that sound like, doesn't that sound like a great place to work? Like for people that want to kick this administration's ass? That seems like the place where you want to work, or at least volunteer or donate your time, money, efforts, whatever. They are awesome.
Yeah, and if J.P. Cooney sounds familiar, he was there start January 7th, right? He was there at the Justice Department, wanted to start a task group to investigate the attack at the Capitol, and he wanted to focus on the Willard War Room, right, and go all the way up to Donald Trump if necessary. There was a Trump fan, a MAGA guy, holdover at the FBI named Dan Tuono in the FBI field office there in Washington, who didn't agree with what J.P. Cooney wanted to do. Because this is before Merrick Garland got there, right?
Yeah, this is
he
right. This is right after the day after.
Yeah, and also, the other person who didn't agree with it. This was at least after Joe Biden took office in January 20th, because Merrick Garland didn't get there till March. But then there was another guy who also didn't agree with what he was doing, named what's his name? Mike Sherwin. He was an interim U.S. attorney in the D.C. field office. And so when Merrick Garland got there, J.P. Cooney put together this task force, wanted to subpoena the Willard War Room records to see the ties between the White House and Bannon and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. That's where he wanted to start focusing this investigation of the top of the coup and not just the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And they wanted to read in and tell Merrick Garland what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do this. And first of all, the FBI, that guy, Dan Tuono, refused to serve the search warrants on the Willard War Room for J.P. Cooney and his team. And then they refused to even tell Merrick Garland about what J.P. Cooney was doing and blocked him, didn't tell J.P. Cooney about the read-in appointment with Merrick Garland. Now, eventually, Merrick Garland said, no, we need to do this. He either found out what J.P. Cooney was doing or he wanted to start his own thing. So within a month, he started something called the Investigations Unit, which was a very small group of people to prevent leaks, right?
Yeah.
To investigate the top of the coup all the way up to Donald Trump. So that started very early on, but it got stalled. It kept getting stalled by Christopher Wray's chief of staff, who was eventually fired and replaced, by Dan Tuono, who was eventually chased out. Mike Sherwin, Merrick Garland basically said, we're going to investigate you and what you're doing here. And then he resigned to avoid those sanctions.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of early clean out of these Trump holdovers that were blocking subpoenas and trying to keep J.P. Cooney's investigation from going forward. And eventually it did. And then the other problem was that the insurrectionist senators, Republican senators, were refusing. They actually said, we're not going to allow any of Biden's Department of Justice appointees to go forward until you start treating the George Floyd protesters the same as you're treating the January 6th protesters.
Yeah,
and so it took
that.
until November at the end of that year, almost a full year, to get Biden's U.S. attorney in at D.C. to replace Mike Sherwin. And that's when the investigation started picking up steam. And because Garland was like, why is all this? And he found out about all the blockings, and he started to fire all these people, take out the people that were blocking him and his people from investigating. And then, of course, you didn't even have a U.S. attorney. And so that he brought in Thomas Windom once his U.S. attorney in D.C. got there to help lead this investigation. And it started picking up steam in February of 2022, when he finally was able to oust Christopher Wray's chief of staff, who he then at that point found to be a bottleneck in the process. And that's when the FBI started cooperating with the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland's subpoenas and everything to investigate the top of the coup. So that's who J.P. Cooney is. He's got a very cool, long history of trying to do the right thing and being blocked at every turn by a bunch of jerks. And so for him to start this law firm outside the government to help local authorities bring public corruption cases, I think is outstanding.
Absolutely. And they are, I'm going to definitely be following them, as I encourage all of our listeners to do the same, because I guarantee you they're going to be doing some phenomenal work that's going to piss off a lot of people in this administration. So stay tuned and follow them.
Yeah.
And actually, I should try to reach out to them, see if we could get them on. I should try to reach out. Cool. Yeah, let's see if we could do that. I would love to talk to them. So
I would as well. And by the way, all the facts that I just gave came from multiple reports from the New York Times in 2023 and the Washington Post. Didn't get a lot of circulation on cable news, but everything I just said isn't an opinion. It's all cited reporting.
Yeah, that is factual and actual.
Yes, factual and actual. All right, we don't have any Rudy news, but we do have an update on the Pillow Man. We're going to talk about the rest of the press corps at the Pentagon too, but we have to take this last quick break, so stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Like Allison said, no Rudy news, but we have Pillow Man update for you. And this is from the Post. Nearly 1 week since a rash of Pentagon journalists turned in their press credentials after refusing to sign a new restrictive press policy, the Defense Department announced a new media press corps, largely hailing from right-wing outlets.
This is so sad.
And insane.
The 60 people from various news organizations represent, quote, a broad spectrum of news media outlets and independent journalists. That's what Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell wrote in a statement on Twitter, adding, all of the publications agreed to the agency's press policy. So this is supposed to, what we're about to tell you is supposed to be a broad spectrum of new media outlets. According to a draft of the announcement obtained by the Post ahead of Parnell's tweet, the coalition of signatories includes Real America's Voice, streaming service Lindell TV, started by MyPillow CEO and Trump ally Mike Lindell. The websites Gateway Pundit, The Post Millennial, Human Events, and The National Pulse, and a thing called Red State. It also includes Turning Point USA's media brand Frontlines, as well as influencer Tim Pool's Timcast, and a Substack-based newsletter called The Washington Reporter. The memo says that, quote, many independent journalists also signed but did not specify who they were.
Yeah, Parnell said that 26 people from 18 outlets signed the original document, including OAN, The Federalist, and the Epoch Times. New media outlets and independent journalists have created the formula to circumvent the lies of mainstream media and get real news directly to the American people. Parnell wrote this on X. Their reach and impact collectively are far more effective and balanced than the self-righteous media who choose to self-deport from the Pentagon.
Yeah, this is This is what I was trying to get corporate media to do with independent media like us.
Yeah.
And now the right wing is doing it. The Defense Department declined to offer additional comment or give the full list of signatories. Timcast, the National Pulse, and Washington Reporter all confirmed to the Post they had signed the policy. Post Millennial, Just the News, Human Events, TPUSA Frontlines, Pillowman, and the Daily Signal and the Gateway Pundit all confirmed it on Twitter. The introduction of a new media press corps follows a similar move earlier this year by the White House, which has held special briefings for influencers, upstart news outfits, and other non-traditional media. That's a nice way of saying Russia-funded idiots and liars. It also has a new media seat in the briefing room, sometimes occupied by newer yet more mainstream outlets like Semaphore and Notice.
Trump administration officials have defended their new media shift by suggesting they want to reach a broader and more diverse American audience. But many of the newest press corps entrants are small partisan outlets with low online engagement. Only a few of the new entrants, including the Gateway Pundit and Red State, rank among the top 20 right-wing websites in the U.S., according to estimates from the online data firm SimilarWeb, cited by the political content tracker The Writing. The Gateway Pundit had 25 million visits in August to its website, while Red State had fewer than 10 million. The estimate said the New York Times, by comparison, had nearly 600 million visits.
Yeah, but okay.
Yeah.
The Defense Department has made previous attempts to boost less traditional media outlets. In February, moving the New York Times and NPR, moving them out from their dedicated office spaces in February in favor of the New York Post and Breitbart, OAN, and HuffPost. The resident Pentagon press corps, as it's known, are the journalists, reporters, producers, photographers, videographers who cover the Pentagon on a day-to-day basis. Of the Pentagon's new press corps, only OAN was a regular presence before last week's walkout.
Yeah, Fox News Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's former employer joined ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN in announcing it would not agree to the media policy. Today, we joined virtually every other news organization in declining to agree to the Pentagon's new requirements, the joint statement read. The policy is without precedent and threatens core journalistic protections.
Yeah, when Fox says that.
Exactly, you got a problem. Other conservative outlets, Newsmax, the Washington Times, and the Washington Examiner, all of which have reporters who regularly cover the Pentagon from the building, also declined to sign, as did the Daily Caller.
The Post previously reported that only 15 people had signed the media policy as of October 16th, the day of the walkout. That list included OAN, The Federalist, Epoch Times, as well as a smattering of foreign outlets, freelancers, and people that no one's ever heard of. The outlets have stepped in to take the old guard's place. They're all relatively scrappy, less well-known. Some have trafficked in conspiracy theories. That should read, they all have trafficked in conspiracy theories and nonsense.
I was just about to say, wait, not some, they all have.
Tim Pool, CEO of Timcast, wrote in a statement he plans to have the outlet's White House correspondent attend any press briefings the Pentagon may hold.
Pool, a popular YouTuber, previously worked for a group called Tenant Media that the Justice Department said in an indictment was operated by Russian government-funded RT. He previously posted on X, I just read the Dow press memo, DOW, Department of War press memo, and I don't understand WTF the media is complaining about, referencing the Department of War to Trump's administration's rebranding of the Defense Department.
So his first public statement as a Pentagon correspondent is, I don't understand what the fuck the media is complaining about. Gateway Pundit, popular right-wing website, filed for bankruptcy after facing a slew of lawsuits over its content. It settled one high-profile defamation lawsuit filed by Georgia election workers in 2024. Human Events is a small right-wing news blog edited by Jack Posobiec, a right-wing podcaster who was invited to travel with Hegseth on overseas trips to Europe this year, though he did not attend. Posobiec recently criticized reporters for yelling questions at Trump and Russian President Putin in an August summit. Quote, maybe I was raised a little differently, he told Steve Bannon on a podcast. So these are just the worst of the worst people. They are like the article says, a smattering of like low engagement conspiracy theorists online, and they're now the Pentagon pool of reporters.
By the way, Keg Seth will never not be funny.
Thank you. Yeah, or Keg's Breath, or Keg Stand, we call
Breath.
him.
Yeah, all of
Whiskey
them.
Pete.
All of the above. All of the above.
Well, that's the news, my friends. And for this week's Clean Up on Aisle 45, sorry we didn't have more fun Rudy news for you at the end there. But we'll keep an eye on everything that's going on there. I still want to know more about that accident that he got in on the side of the road.
Yeah.
There has to be more to that story.
There has to be.
We'll figure it out. But thank you all so much for listening. Thanks to our patrons who get these shows ad-free and early. As if you're a patron, we'll see you this Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, for our Zoom call, happy hour, extravaganza, Q&A, ask us anything fun times. I love that, by the way, when we get to talk to everybody. So look forward to seeing everybody there. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you next week. Do you have any final thoughts, my friend?
No, I do want to talk about something that we'll be following. I'm sure we'll be covering is what we talked about. Since we talked about Jack Smith, Chuck Grassley wants to talk to Jack Smith, or wants to investigate him. And Jack Smith has called his bluff and said, I will testify publicly, and I want to. Let's do it. So we will be following that, see how that plays out. But if you come for Jack Smith, you better make sure all your ducks are in a row, because he will have you looking stupid as hell.
Yeah.
If you come for Jack Smith.
Grassley and Jordan want to interview him behind closed doors, and Jack Smith is like, nope, in public, and I need my volume 2 report, and you got to tell me if I can talk about that publicly, and I need all my other files if I'm going to answer your questions, because you have them.
And they're like, wait, huh?
and he's like, thanks, let me know. I'll be there at your earliest convenience if all that stuff happens. So we'll see how that goes down. I really, Jim Jordan, I guarantee you, Jim Jordan and Chuck Grassley do not want Jack Smith to testify publicly.
They absolutely don't want that, because he will not hold back. Exactly.
This isn't Bob Mueller, guys. He's ready to talk, and he's pissed.
And sure, right. Instead of Mueller, she wrote, we're going to have, this is a new podcast going to come from this. You don't know Jack, I guess.
We already did that podcast, Harry. We did it. Andy McCabe and I did.
No. I meant the tattoo of it. I said tattoo. You got not Mueller, she wrote. You know how you got the Mueller walking through the columns?
Oh,
we
yeah.
Get a Jack Smith one walking through the columns now with Jack tattoo.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that would be pretty funny. I've got room. Might as well.
I'm about to say, yeah.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. And for our patrons, we'll see you for the bonus episode Thursday and on Friday for our happy hour Zoom call. So check your inbox for that. It might be in your junk. So check your junk.
Check your
we'll
junk.
See you then. Until then, I'm Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Clean Up on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill, with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Clean Up on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.